Well, it's spring. The calendar tells us that spring has arrived. So it's fitting that on this next segment we take a look at the state's parks. And with us to talk about these are Bobby Fulcher, East Tennessee Regional Naturalist, and Mack Prichard, Conservation Coordinator. But before we get to talking about the programs of the parks and their future, let's take a look at how the 1983 National Rolley Hole Marble Championships turned out at Standing Stone State Park. Played as it has been for many generations. Teams of 2 players each use hand-hewn and machine-polished flint marbles. In the game, the marbles are fired, lobbed, and rolled across a yard 40 feet long and 25 feet wide that contains 3 holes. The rules of the game call for each player to drop his marble into the top, middle, and bottom holes of the yard 3 times, and to prevent his opponents from doing this. But the main strategy of the game is...
well, really, you just got to hit them before they hit you.
I can't tell you exactly where it originated from, but it was something that the older people, the older men, had for recreation. That's all I know. They'd gather at each person's house. One's house one weekend, another the next weekend. All of them had a marble yard in their backyard or out under a big shade tree. On Saturdays and Sundays, they'd gather up and play marbles.
It's really a novel event. But Bob, what is a marble championship contest actually doing in a state park?
Well, one of the purposes of state parks is to provide a place for people to learn about and enjoy the culture of the state and the history, as well as, of course, the natural beauty. And in recent years, we've been making more of an effort to learn about those things in this state that make our people a special people, the things that people eat, the way they build their homes, the way they entertain themselves, the way they work. And when we were finding out a little bit more about our neighbors around Standing Stone and the communities there, we learned that a very important part of everyday life for many of the men there from age 20 to age 70 is marble playing.
Is that part of the folk life program that the parks are engaged in?
That's right. Several years ago, we hired a folklorist with the help of a federal grant to work in the area, and we learned more about the marble playing tradition then. And as a result of that, we got the community to put up some prize money, and we built a marble yard in the state park as part of a redevelopment of that park. We're putting in a new tennis court and basketball goals and that sort of thing, so we just figured we'd slip a marble yard in there too, since the locals enjoy it so much.
That sounds good. In what ways has that been a success there?
Oh, I think that's going to be a real success story. One of the purposes of our folk life program is to encourage traditional artists and to give them some or greater esteem in their community. And in this case, when we announced the tournament, A lot of people who had retired from marble playing started picking it up. A lot of the sons of the marble players started coming out to the marble yards at night and playing more. And I think that our sponsorship of this tournament is going to have a real effect on that community. I think they're going to take marble playing seriously again. About 10 years ago, they stopped playing, but maybe now they'll keep it up. And that makes life a little more interesting for us Tennesseans.
Well, how can some of our viewers find out about that program, or maybe some of the others?
Well, we sponsor a great many events like that through the summer. They're all different because people are different all through the state. And we have a phone number in Nashville, 742-6675. People could call there to get information about our programs.
Well, do these cultural programs really mark a new direction for parks in the state?
I think they do to some extent. I think parks all across this country, park systems and agencies, are now looking at traditional culture and traditional life more closely. I think at one time we thought of cultural resources more as buildings, as battlegrounds, as historic homes or birthplaces, and I think there's been a recognition across this country in recent years that that our cultural resources include those parts of ourselves and lives that have been handed down to us, perhaps never written down.
Mack, I'm not going to let you get away without saying something, too. Really, there's a long and pretty exciting history in Tennessee parks. In your role of parks, what do you see as the direction that we're going?
I think we're going more in the direction that Bobby has pointed out, and I'm glad to see that. We have in this state a wonderful base of natural resources, of outstanding parks, areas that spread from the Mississippi Valley and Reelfoot Lake, 200 feet above sea level down near Memphis, to the 2,000-foot plateau of the Cumberland Wonderland at Fall Creek Falls and Savage Gulf, all the way over to the easternmost portion of our state at Warriors Path and Roan Mountain along the Appalachian Trail above a mile high. And we have this natural resource heritage, which has included all along, sort of on the side, the human element and the people who've been affected by this land. You know, the wilderness of America has profoundly shaped the American mind, and the people who've lived in these valleys, who've developed a lifestyle, bringing with them, in many cases, the cultural traditions of the older countries, have brought along a unique portion of our Tennessee inheritance. When Bobby Fulcher came to us from his native state in Florida, he was stationed at Pickett State Park as a naturalist. It wasn't long until he became friends with local mountain people who picked the banjo, and he learned to do that. And he discovered a wonderful fellow out there named D. Hicks, who sang, I think, 400 ballads. Bobby could tell us more about that, and he's tape recorded these for the Library of Congress. And this kind of information eventually led Bobby to get a grant to establish a folklore survey across the state with folklorists operating out of our state parks. I think perhaps this is one of the first park systems in the country that reached out to that degree of cultural responsibility, looking at resources which were dying out. And like endangered species, many of these people have in their memories a wonderful legacy to share. And this is very encouraging to see that sort of thing, and we're proud of it.
Are more events like this beginning to happen at other parks, too? Is this expanding through the whole park system?
Oh yes, we have worked in 55 counties with this Folklife project.